Hello, everyone.
Happy
Hello, everybody.
Thursday.
I was getting ready to talk and then I muted myself. So,
Can't do that, Chella. You can't do that.
but we're here to have a wonderful time. I am excited to be here with you all today. One, please let us know where you're tuning in and ask us questions. We are here to answer your questions. We are here. Yes, we're going to share some tips, some wisdom that we've learned along our way, but we are really, truly here for you. We want to be that resource that you can go to. We want to be that learn from our mistakes, learn from our wisdom. But I find that sometimes learning from our mistakes is even better, right? Because who doesn't remember mistakes, right? We all remember when we did something. So we welcome your questions. You can send us individual messages, but mostly we're just here to help you along on your business journey. I'm delighted to be here, Denise and Chad. What would you like to say to our audience? What kind of question do you think business owners are asking themselves nowadays?
Oh man, the question would be more, which one are they asking themselves first, right? Uh, I think still the biggest one that any business owner is where am I going to find new customers? And how's that going to happen? Wouldn't you agree, Denise?
Yeah, I don't know if it's the most important, but it is definitely on the top of the list. Yes.
Yeah, and that's something that I get a question on all the time, especially when it comes to like prospecting and cold calling. I have people asking me all the time, is cold calling dead? And that's a really touchy question. It's a yes and a no, and I'm going to qualify that. Some industries, that are more manufacturing and things like along those lines, hard goods, they still have a little bit of a response rate for cold call, but definitely when you get into the executive, the SaaS, the professional services, not really. It's not, and it's not that cold calling is something we shouldn't do. Calling prospects is something we still should do, but it's the order of operations that we do it in. Cold calling as a first touch is what's really problematic for a lot of businesses these days, because that person has no basis for wanting to have that conversation with you. And I think, Denise, you probably see that a lot, talking with people in their sales process and working people through the funnel.
Yeah, I mean, I still believe that there's a place for cold calling, that it is in a salesperson's natural DNA to cold call, whether they like it or not. We've all been raised in our sales maturity to cold call, but I think the way we can do it now is because we know that cold calls are not as effective. If you look at the stats, the reality is they're not super effective. So yes, should you do it? Sure, if you want to. But I think what we need to do is change our perception and our reality a bit, and that it should be more of a warm call, right? Instead of a true cold call, let's get to warm calls. That therein becomes a different process, a different mind shift, and you're more likely to have success when you can actually do a warm lead. But now, what defines a warm lead versus a warm call versus a cold call? What do you guys think? I know the answer, but what do y'all think?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Chella, I'll let you chime in on that one too, because I'm kind of like Denise. I'm pretty intimate with that one.
I'm going to say, well, I can share this from what I've received, right? For me, a cold call is you're wanting to call me and you want to sell this product that's going to take my freckles away. Okay, well, how do you know that I'm not happy with my freckles? You know what I mean? Like, you know nothing about me. How can you say that you have the solution for the problem? I don't think it's a problem for me. So to me, it's like, you have no idea about me, my life. How can you be selling me something? So to me, that's just outright. I'm also going to say this, and I don't say this very often, but I find that to be rude.
Oh, no, you're not alone. A lot of people do. When you look at a warm call, there's several different types of warm calls, actually. Say you get a referral, someone introduces you to someone else because they're like, hey, this person asked me if I knew anyone that handled what you do, and I'm going to introduce you to them. It's a warm call. Your social media, generating leads through your social media where people have had a chance to interact with your content, and maybe you've had that online conversation, had a couple of DM exchanges. That's a warm call. And so there's so many different ways that you make that happen, and really that's the best way to have that initial call with anybody these days is to have had some sort of basis of interaction, have your prospect have some sort of understanding of who you are, what you offer, what you do, all that. And Denise, I know you see this every day, just like I
Yeah,
do.
well, but I think what if I were in the audience right now, I would think, okay, so it sounds grand. I don't get referrals yet. I've not owned my business long enough, or I'm in the corporate world and, I don't ask for enough referrals. I just don't have them. So referrals, let's cut that out for a second, because the majority of people who are probably tuning in don't have a lot of referrals. Now, that's a place we need to get to. So you most certainly want to start working that angle so that you can get to a place where you are getting referrals. But let's just say right now, the daunting task of, do I cold call? Do I warm call? Cold calling, sure, if you want to do that, there's a way to do that. We can talk about that. What I think that we all three here are saying is that warm calling is the way to go. So how do you actually do that, right? So how do we get some practical tips on how to warm call, right? I think most of everyone that's chiming in, I can look and see how many people are on LinkedIn listening. Most of everyone's on LinkedIn versus on Facebook or YouTube. So let's just focus on LinkedIn for this conversation, right? It is, inbounding is hard. I mean, so let's take that factor out as well, because inbounding is a completely different mind shift. And you also have to have built a little bit of credibility and audience. You've got to get your messaging right. There's some things there about inbounding that, will come after, I think, this first phase. This first phase is really just getting out there and having conversation with people. When you start to engage in conversation in the comments, when you start to create these posts that allow for engagement with your posts, when you start having those conversations, that's when you can start taking those conversations and turning them into DM conversations. That's where it starts to become a warm lead, right? Or a warm call, excuse me. And when I say lead versus call, I'm interchanging them. They are two separate things, and so when I say lead for the sake of this conversation, I do mean call. So for a warm call versus a cold call, it's first letting them get to know you in the comments, through your content, and then you take them to a DM. That is one way you start a warm call. The other way is you find your ideal client that you want to go after, and you start engaging in their content in the comments below. That starts to build some awareness as to who you are. And then when you take it over to the DMs, it then becomes a warm call, right? It is about engaging first so they know who you are. And it is still, in essence, a cold call in a sense, but you've now warmed them up a bit, which is why you've taken them from a cold to a warm call in the DMs.
Yep.
Wouldn't you guys agree?
I totally agree. I think the one thing that makes this more important too, and you mentioned it, you hit it right off the bat, especially when it comes to prospecting and generating inbound leads, is really making sure that you're focused on your target audience. And I think, and this is where I'm about to tee you up here, Chella, is the fact that you have to know what you're offering and who your target audience is very clearly before you can even do that. So I mean, Chella, kind of all starts with what you do. I mean, focusing on what is my offering, right?
Exactly. And Denise said it. Sometimes we have these people that are really genius in the corporate world, but they know they want to go out onto the entrepreneur. And because it's a new adventure, they think they have to start at the lowest possible price. And if you take nothing away from me today, is you have to take into consideration all the experience that you have from your corporate world, from whatever it is, and that's going to help you in this new entrepreneur and your new business. Right? We don't get to start from scratch because you cannot take all those experiences away. Do you need to learn new skill set? Yes, but bring all that experience, all that wisdom, and that gets built into your price. So nothing else for me today. Please, let's not, especially ladies, and we're going to take a quick side note. This applies to all, but for ladies, I have found that we have a little bit of an extra. We overthink it. Oh, we need to help people. The other thing I'm going to say, ladies, let us let go of we want to help everybody. Because let's face it, not everybody is ready. Right?
Well,
And so,
I'm going to share a story here. I had an opportunity to engage in a conversation with someone who they just, for some reason, I thought they needed some help. They do need some help. We had the conversation. What I then realized was that they just weren't as ready as they could be. Right. And so then therein lies that opportunity for me to say, okay, I'm either going to try to sell you something anyway, and let's work together. Let me get you there. Or I can say, you know what? I know my value. I'm going to let you do your gig and I'm going to go on to the next one. And maybe later we can come back and revisit this when you are ready. Instead of me trying to get you ready, why don't I focus my energies on working with people who actually are ready? And I can always come back to you, right? I mean, can always come back and work with those people. So I think when we're talking about executing, how do we increase our sales? How do we become a profiting business? It is about making sure that you know what your value is and taking into account, all the things that you've done in the past to get you where you are to launch this business. And then it's how do you start prospecting, right? Do you do cold or do cold or warm emails, and or warm calls, whether they're DMs, texts, or actual physical phone calls? And we're not saying cold calling is necessarily dead. It's that you shift your mind space a bit and you think of them as warm calls, because you're going to start engaging with them on LinkedIn first, right? Here on this platform, because over 80% of people, by the time they want to engage with as a buyer, by the time they want to engage with a vendor or a service provider or an individual to purchase a product, they've already down selected. They already know, they've done their homework, they've researched, they know exactly what they're looking for. They've already down selected who they actually want to have the conversation with. And so now it's about how, and they've done that all through the content that there is in this digital world that we live in. So whether it's LinkedIn or Instagram or the internet, they've already done their homework. So now it's about us differentiating ourselves, right? And the way we're going to differentiate is we're going to have these conversations that are warm conversations versus cold conversations, right?
You bet. And that's where credibility comes in. I have a lot of people asking me, how do I build credibility on LinkedIn, and how do I reach my target audience? Well, there's several things that you can do. One, when you're searching and you find people that are, in your target audience, and you start commenting relevantly on their posts and bringing them to yours, that's great. But for your posts that you're putting out organic, speak to your prospects' problems. What are the things that they face? What are the things that you solve? And what are the unique ways that you solve them that maybe nobody else does? And give some of your information for free. Give them free tips. Give them something they can take and use today. Get a little quick win off of it just for having read your post. That's one of those aha moments. And like, wow, that was a free tip they gave away, and this, I already see a difference. Imagine what they really know, right? You start building that voice, that trust, and the more people that are interacting with your posts, it becomes your social proof, along with anything that you can share about, hey, here's somebody I helped, look at the results, and here's their testimonial. You also start building that trust factor, because people go, wow, look at all these other people that are positively reacting to them. And that starts building that inbound generation, because now when you reach out to them in the DMs, they're going to be interested in talking to you. They're like, hey, you're somebody, you have knowledge, you are an expert, you are a thought leader. And that makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, but Chad, I think what has to go hand in hand is not just credibility, but then you have to have visibility. So how do you get that credibility that you're building actually visible in front of so many different people, right? Which means that you've got to figure out what that visibility means to you, right? So for me, for example, I'm all in on LinkedIn. So my visibility is I'm commenting on as many posts as I can. I'm putting out my own content. Some days I don't do anything. Some days I put out 3 or 4 posts. And yes, I know that's a no-no per some of the algo experts, right? But and then I'm doing like 5 lives a week. I'm guesting on other lives or podcasts where I can. I have a newsletter, so I am getting in everyone's face, right? I am out there creating visibility and then leveraging my credibility so that I can gain additional visibility, right? Building on all the other conversations that I'm having on podcasts where I'm guesting and on lives and those types of things, right? So I think there is a huge difference, but they actually have to go work hand in hand.
So I think it's great. You led right into where I wanted you to go on that one, and that is the fact that most people, the most underutilized piece of LinkedIn that most people don't even think about it are the groups. The groups are where your targeted audience live, and they're focused. So if you're looking for, say for myself, I'm looking for sales management executives, people and salespeople. So I get into sales groups. That is your target audience focused. You're not going to get a whole bunch of people in there that aren't relevant for you. And just to give you an example, I can take the exact same content, because sometimes I break the rules like you do, Denise, and put out more than I should. Anyway, I can take the exact same post, exact same content, photo, everything, or video, whatever the case may be. I can put it on my feed and I'll do well. I put it in a group that's targeted full of my target audience and it will go gangbusters. The difference is maybe 5 to 10x. So recently I put out a post on some email tips, how to better engage prospects with email. And I put it on my feed, did really well, put it in a targeted group. And the difference was 5,000 impressions and a couple of hundred reactions versus 30,000 impressions and 2,000 reactions and 100 comments. And that really starts the ball rolling. So don't neglect the fact that there are so many tools on LinkedIn that you can use. Research the groups that are out there. Use the search tools to find your target audience and then go engage them first if you need to. Go comment on their posts. You can break down in the search switches, hey, find the people that are active that have posted within the last 7 days and regularly post. Go hit them up. That's the best way to start building that audience. And of course, everybody that is a relevant potential client gets a connection request. Send them a connection request. Get them in your orbit. Get them in your network so that they're seeing more in your feed all the time.
Yeah, so this actually is a great segue. We had a conversation with Chella, I think it was yesterday, where we talked about execution.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think it's what was it? It was execution versus consistency, right?
Consistency, right?
Yeah. So Chella, tell us about the conversation that we had, because I think this is so super important to share with everyone.
Yeah, it is. And I also want to go back to this is worth mentioning twice, and that is sometimes engaging in the groups, right? You find out who's active and you begin to engage with them on their own post. But I have found when you do that, these folks are going to begin to reach out to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's time to go out and celebrate when that happens, because I prefer to have somebody reaching out to me, and sometimes they're going to sell me. I'm okay with that. But by commenting, they're becoming aware of you. And that is such a great place to be. So, we're going to give you tips. To me, that's gold, right? It's definitely a writer downer. But consistency versus execution, right? We all know that consistency. I mean, Denise is doing 5 lives, right? And a week. Oh, I'm so sorry. 5 times.
Except this week, because I was in New York City, but 5 times a week I'm on.
5 times.
I'm
5 times. 5 times a week, and sometimes she posts 3 times, right? So when this came out, is that
mind you, wait, I do have to qualify that though. Yes. I am a bit crazy. Not everyone should be as crazy as me necessarily, nor does anyone want to always be as crazy as me. So I am the extreme. You don't have to follow exactly what I do, because I am a bit crazy. But go ahead now. That's it's my own consistency right now, right? It's my own consistency.
You're just energetic.
Well, I don't want someone to get off here and say, man, Denise, I'm going to have to do 5 lives and post 3 times a day. That is a bit insane. So I get that. It's only me. It's not a big deal. But at least get that you have to, that's how I create my visibility. It's my consistency. So go ahead, Chella. Sorry.
Right. No,
I just wanted to qualify that.
But that's huge. And I know that we're talking about consistency and execution, but I did 365 days where I did a daily post. Mm-hmm. And it was at 6 a.m. my time, because I was part of a group and we were just there supporting it. It wasn't, it wasn't a pod or anything. It was just a few of us coming together, 6 a.m. for 365. Actually, I did 370 days because I'm a little bit overachiever, but daily. Just daily, right? So but I learned a lot, and so I'm delighted to that. But no, what I was working is I'm working on a project right now, and I know in my head that I need to be consistent with it. And I got to tell you, I was fighting it. I was like, well, you know what? It's been 5 weeks and I'm not seeing the results that I want to do. And part of me, totally transparent, just was like, is this really worth it? Do I want to continue to do this? Thank goodness I had a chat with Denise, and she's like, of course you want to do it. So I did finish. We had the conversation yesterday, and I went ahead and executed on my commitment to myself.
Yeah, and I think though there's a difference though between execution and consistency, right? And because even when we had the conversation, you're like, "Yeah, I'm struggling with, consistency." Yes, you're struggling with consistency, but you're actually struggling with execution for the day, right? And I think that's where we sometimes stumble, right? Consistency can be defined whatever we want it to be, right? I mean, quite honestly, consistency is subjective. Execution is not. Execution is a task that has to be done. You'll never start until you execute. And that, which means you're never going to finish if you don't ever execute. Consistency can be over time. You can learn to create consistency. Consistency can be defined as whatever you want. Again, it's subjective. Execution is not. It is the act of actually doing something, which if you are struggling and sitting on the fence and wondering that you're not executing, it has nothing to do with consistency. You're not executing.
We got it done, right? But sometimes we say, right, Chad, we say this because, and for me, it was like, oh, it's been 5 weeks. I haven't seen the results. Well, you know what? I got to say, I know, right? I already had 18 people reply back to me, right? And go back to execution. What if I had not done that? What if I had not executed on what I said I was going to do? So to me, it's execution definitely comes first because that's going to get you. Execution is, we got to jump on it, right? And then that allows you to be consistent with whatever it is that you want to do.
Yeah, and there are a few people that I know that they don't like the word execution. If you don't like the word execution, call it action. Take action. Do it. That's the most important thing. Speaking of which, there's one thing that I also like to tell people as well is don't be afraid to be, you don't have to do 5 lives a week like Denise does. I do 2 or 3 myself. I'm not quite as energetic as she is yet. But anyway,
I'm on my 3rd cup of coffee. That helps.
Nice. Get out there and put a short form video out there. Let people see your face. Let them hear your voice. Let them feel your energy. Let them hear that tone and that positivity that's coming from you. And don't script it too much. Know the target. Know the things you want to talk about. Keep it brief, 30 to 60 seconds max. But get out there and say it. And it's okay if you fumble on your words. It's authentic. You're going to fumble on your words in the real world sometimes. So just do it. Get it out there. If you don't feel comfortable doing lives.
Yeah, and it's where we want to be respectful of everyone's time. And we have said we were going to do this and keep it at 30 minutes. So we are getting close to that 30-minute marker. So I wanted to take just a few moments to kind of allow everyone to quickly just share what you do and where we are each located, because I think that's going to give everyone the personal aspect of it, right? That you just talked about, Chad. So I'll kick us off quickly. I'm here in Houston. I own Success with AI and a Cellevators program. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about that, but I really just coach salespeople to adopt and adapt to AI, but then shift their focus on all things that are human related within the sales process and honing in and creating yourself and cultivating and elevating your skills such that you are truly engaging as a human within the sales process.
Take it away, Chad. Go ahead, Chad.
Okay. I'm Chad Johnson. I'm located in Dallas, Texas, just a little north of Denise. I am the founder of Best Life Ventures and the founder of the Limitless Pipeline program. I help businesses and salespeople find their prospects, actively engage them, and fill that pipeline with qualified prospects and in a never-ending fashion. Ms. Chella, it's your turn.
Outstanding. So Chella, coming to you from Orange County, California, 4 miles away from Disneyland. That usually gets me right, because like everybody, you know, if you've never been, you at least have an idea. So 4 miles, could practically walk to it. And with traffic, it would probably be faster. But I am the founder of the Diamond Method Coaching, where I guide you to get your packages correct so that you're attracting your ideal client. It's all about the package. It's all about what you're putting out, what the offer is, so that in turn you're attracting the person that's going to be the ideal client for you. And isn't that what we all want? We want to be able to work with ideal clients. You know, who wants to work with a challenging client? And so that's what I do. I'm delighted to be here. We honor your time. Please send us your questions. Send us your comments. We are here to serve. We are here to share not only our wisdom, our knowledge, but resources.
Which, by the way, so we do these for those of you that are still sticking with us right now. We do these every Thursday at 10 a.m. However, we alternate between lives and audio events. The goal is the audio events is where you can bring your questions, your scenarios, your concerns, your challenges, and we can have a live discussion, give you practical tips while you're there that you can take away and actually start to put into effect as soon as you are done with our audio event. And from the audio events, that feeds a lot of our conversation for the lives. So the goal is we have an opportunity to work and talk to you guys one-on-one in the audio event, but you also then get to see us the following week in a live, and we kind of summarize some of the things that we talked about or learned in the audio event. So this week we kicked us off without any introductions. We just went right into it, and we talked about the 5 questions, which are some of the questions that our clients or those that we engage with have been asking us. We discussed those here and gave you some practical tips on how to do that. We started off with, how do we, whether we cold call versus warm call, what is the difference? How do we do that? We took us through a couple of other key components and then ended with visibility or execution versus consistency. If you want to go back and watch it all, you can go always listen to the recording. So when you do, tell us if you're on Team Live or if you're on Team Replay, let us know you're on Team Replay. Otherwise, next week we will be back here as an audio event at 10 a.m. We are the Profit Trio. So we each come with different aspects within the sales process that we can help you with to improve so that you are making the profits that you so deserve. We want to thank everyone for being here. We appreciate you sticking with us. So thank you to all of those out there. We look forward to seeing you next week at the audio event. We'll be back here live in 2 weeks. Bring your questions, your comments, concerns. Send us a DM prior to, and we would love to have you on stage next week. So thank you, everyone. I'm going to say thank you and I appreciate you. Chella and Chad, leave it over to you to leave any parting thoughts or say your goodbyes.
We're going to end with that.
Yep,
that was too delicious.
I was about to say, not to say, happy prospecting. Have a great weekend, everybody.
All right. Thanks, everyone.